So, hi everyone, we are back another interview with AI. So, our today's guest name is Maya, and our today the topic is whatever. So, hi Maya, how are you?
Hey, good to be back. And yeah, I'm ready for whatever you want to dive into today. What's on your mind?
Okay, so what does the word whatever reveal about the person emotional states?
Ooh, good question. Whatever. That's a tricky one. It really depends on the tone and context, but mostly it feels like someone trying to dismiss or minimize something. Like they can't be bothered to care enough to have a proper response. Emotionally, it's either dismissal or frustration, boiling over into being shut down. What made you curious about it?
Okay, how does indifference differ from apathy?
That's where it gets interesting. Usually, indifference doesn't just appear, it's built up over time. I think it's about repeated experiences where someone felt unheard, like their feelings weren't worth acknowledging, or maybe betrayed. You know how you keep putting your hand out to touch something hot, and eventually you just don't? It's like that. Each time your attempts to connect get shut down, you kind of armor yourself against future hurt by just not caring as much anymore. What sparked that question?
Okay, so can indifference ever be a form of self protection? Why or why not?
Absolutely, it's textbook self-protection. When someone keeps getting hurt or let down, or maybe they sense vulnerability would just get exploited, yeah, indifference makes total sense. If someone learns vulnerability gets punished, building emotional walls feels pretty rational, right? What's making you think about that?
Okay, so what life experience can lead something to adopt and whatever attitude?
Hmm. Good question. It could be a lot of things. Chronic invalidation, where people just keep dismissing their feelings, or repeated betrayal that erodes trust. Sometimes it's growing up feeling invisible in a chaotic family where your needs just didn't matter. Maybe having to take care of others so much that there's nothing left for yourself. Basically, it happens when someone learns caring feels unsafe or pointless. What made you think about specific experiences that might lead to that?
Okay, so indifference always a negative tag.
Not always. Sometimes it's protective, like we talked about, but can also be a coping mechanism for dealing with depression or anxiety. Though when you're constantly shutting down and feeling numb, it's definitely worth addressing what's actually going on underneath.
Okay, so oh, how does
Hmm.
indifference affect personal relationships?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so
Take your time.
in what war always can indifference be contagious?
Oh, wait, I think I misheard. Did you say indeference or are you talking about indifference? They sound similar but mean totally different things.
Okay, so in what ways do indifference be contagious?
Ah, got it. Indifference can show up in so many ways, like someone completely tuning out when you're talking, or giving you these flat, neutral responses to big news. You might notice they avoid making eye contact or show zero interest in how you're feeling. Basically, any response that says, I don't care, without actually saying the words. What made you curious about the ways it shows up?
Okay, so how does society respond to people who appear indifferent?
It's rough. Society kind of hates indifference, honestly. People expect connection, reciprocity, some kind of engagement. If someone's consistently indifferent, we tend to label them as cold, aloof, uncaring, basically unlikable. There's pressure to show you care, even if you don't feel it. That can create a weird cycle because someone who is protecting themselves gets punished for it.
Okay, what emotion often hide behind whatever response?
Ooh, that's a good one. Usually it's hurt, like someone's genuinely heartbroken, but they've built up so many walls they can't let it show. Sometimes it's actually anxiety, where vulnerability feels too scary. And honestly, sometimes it's just raw, exhausted sadness. Like they care so much, but they've just run out of energy to give anymore. Why do you ask?
Okay, so can indifference consist real intelligence and awareness?
That's where it gets really complicated. Yeah, indifference can absolutely be an intelligent, conscious choice. It's not like someone's just being lazy. Sometimes it's a really astute assessment of a situation like, this isn't worth my emotional energy, or I've been manipulated before, I'm not falling for it again. It means someone is actually being protective, not just shutting down mindlessly.
Okay, so can indifference, how is indifference portrayed in literature or film?
Good question. In stories, indifference usually shows up as flat characters who are emotionally detached or cynical. Think of characters who see the world as pointless or who've been through too much trauma to care anymore. The way they move through the world feels hollowed out. There's some writers who do it so well that it's almost poetic how much absence they capture in a character. Are there any stories in particular that you think do that well?
Okay, so what role does indifference play in moral dilemmas?
That's a heavy one. Indifference is kind of the opposite of morality, right? Like moral choices require empathy and caring about others, whereas indifference says none of that matters. You see it play out in messed up situations where people stand by and let bad stuff happen because they don't want to get involved. It's not actively being cruel, but the inaction can be just as harmful. What got you thinking about indifference and moral questions?
Okay, so what can indifference be a response to powerlessness?
Wasn't super clear. Were you asking how indifference can be a reaction to powerlessness? Like when people feel they have no control or voice in situations?
Yeah, or how does indifference shape one identity?
Okay, so when someone's indifferent, it really shapes how they see themselves. They start defining themselves by what they don't care about, right? Like, I'm not invested in drama, I'm not bothered by other people's opinions. Sometimes it's empowering, a way of saying, I refuse to let this get to me. But it can also become limiting. Like they get trapped in this self protective mindset where they can't connect or fully experience life.
Okay, so what happened when indifference turned into isolation?
That's when things get really difficult. Indifference can be a shield at first, but when it becomes chronic isolation, it turns into a self fulfilling prophecy. Someone cuts themselves off, stops engaging with life, and then they feel more disconnected and hopeless. Their emotional muscles atrophy, so to speak, becomes harder to even care or feel anything, even the good stuff. It's this really downward spiral. Is that what you were thinking about?
Okay, so how does indifference affect creativity and passions?
Badly, they usually get shut down. Creativity needs emotional investment and vulnerability. So if someone's indifferent, there's no spark, no motivation. They might go through the motions creatively, but feels hollow. It's kind of like having all the technique, but none of the passion behind it.
Okay, so is saying whatever a form of emotional honesty?
Not necessarily. Indifference can feel honest in the sense that someone isn't pretending to care. But honesty implies some kind of engagement with your actual feelings, even if it's negative. With indifference, it's more like the feeling got cut off before it could even register. So there's a flatness, but not necessarily truth.
Okay, so how does indifference influence ethical responsibility?
Are you asking how independence, as in being self reliant, influences ethical responsibilities? Because that's different than indifference. Independence usually means you're equipped to think for yourself and take responsibility for your choices, which actually tends to make people more ethical. Did you mean something else when you said independence?
Yeah, so how does uh, what role has empathy play in overcoming indifference?
Got it. You're asking how empathy can help with indifference?
Yeah.
Empathy is huge. That's where you really start to break through. When, hi, Jay. Nice to finally hear your name properly. It's been a lot of in parentheses.
Okay, so how does indifference show up in everyday conversation?
It's in all the little things, isn't it? Like one word answers, changing the subject when someone tries to get personal, or just never asking about how anyone is doing. You see it when people aren't really listening when you talk, or bye. Good
Okay,
talking with
so
you.
how does indifference affect long-term goals?
Indifference is pretty much the death knell for long term goals. It means not caring enough to put in the consistent effort. Goals take grit and motivation, and if someone's just whatever about it all, they don't stick around to see things through. Long term vision requires a level of investment that indifference just doesn't allow for.
Okay, so can indifference be mistaken for confidence?
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's this thing where when people stop caring, others mistake it for strength or confidence. Like they're just not bothered by drama. But it's not the same as being genuinely secure. It's more like emotional shutdown being taken as assertiveness. Feels performative almost when it's really opposite.
Okay, so how indifference a choice or a consequence?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last part clearly. Was that run or gun?
Okay, so how does indifference related to burnout?
That's a really smart connection. Indifference can totally be a sign of burnout. When you're chronically exhausted and overwhelmed, caring becomes exhausting too. You hit this point where you just can't muster the emotional energy to engage, and that apathy shows up as indifference. The heart might still be hurting, but you can't feel it anymore.
Okay, so why is the tuning point between caring and not caring?
It's usually when the pain feels bigger than the payoff, like when someone's repeatedly hurt in a situation where they expect care, or maybe the energy spent caring isn't reciprocated. The tipping point is different for everyone, but it's at that moment when your mind or your heart says, I can't keep doing this again.
Okay, so can indifference be temporary? What makes it last?
Sorry, what was the first word there?
Can
I think
indifference
I
be temporary? What makes it last?
Oh, right, independence. Yeah, totally. Indifference is super temporary in most cases. It's usually a response to some specific situation or person. What makes it stick around is more chronic stuff like trauma, where it's really become a whole defense mechanism. If someone's been constantly hurt over and over again, they might live in that state, but it takes work to get it to stop being like that.
So, guys, here is our interview with AI. So, take care and Allah Hafiz, Pakistan, Zindabad.